people, and welcome to the show. It is Tuesday, International Tuesday, and it is a very frenetic news cycle today, more on the domestic front. But for the first thing that I want to do is thank everybody that's been following, sharing, subscribing, and helping others to know about the show and about the content. In the days and weeks ahead, some of our team are going to be kind of playing around with the format a little bit. We're going to zhuzh it up a little. So you may see a little bit more irregularity in the posting of the show, but that's just because we're working on it. It's a work in progress. And so I'm excited to share with you the new changes to the show, but I continue to be excited about being able to share thoughts and ideas about what is going on in our politics and what it really means to you. So with that said, please bear with us as we continue to update and improve and upgrade the show. I'd also like you to make sure that you're calling your friends, your family, your posse, your crew, and everybody you know, letting them know about the show and that they should be following it. Now, as I'm sure you know, today was the first day of testimony in the Derek Chauvin trial. It is not the George Floyd trial. George Floyd is not on trial. The officer who murdered him is. And in a perfect world, I would be telling you my thoughts and observations about the testimony that went on today. I cannot do that because I did not watch it. And the reason I did not watch it is because it's just too much for me. Sometimes things happen in our country, sometimes things happen where you realize that there's nothing that I can say to add to this conversation that isn't being said by others. And more importantly, for my own mental health, I have to stay away from it because it's too infuriating and it's too heartbreaking and it's too shocking for me to be able to get my head around it and then be able to focus on other things as well. So I'm going to leave it alone. I will say that I've seen on Twitter and elsewhere, some summary and some of the things that were said. But this ought to be an open and shut case. George Floyd could have had fourth degree cancer, heart condition, brain tumor, hypertension, diabetes, and a broken foot, and Derek Chauvin still killed him. That's what caused his death. So I don't care about any of these other little silly games. I hope that justice is done, but I just can't keep watching it. So you're going to have to get that from some other source. Today, I am going to be talking to you about the other breaking news of the day, which just broke a couple hours ago, really very fresh. And it is the news that Representative Matt Gaetz apparently is being investigated for having sex with a 17-year-old and apparently paying her expenses and that there is a potential that this young woman or this child basically was trafficked. Now, I want to make clear that there's a lot of components to all of this. But whatever it is not political payback. All right. Number one, this investigation has been going on for well over a year, and it began on Bill Barr's watch. Right. Matt Gaetz is an open and notorious supporter of Donald Trump. So he was not, it was his team that began investigating him, not the Biden team. Right. So that's number one. Number two, Matt Gaetz is the only member of Congress who voted against the House bill with respect to sex trafficking. It was everybody in Congress on one side and him on the other side. And now that you see that he's being alleged or that there's an investigation underway about whether or not he was a recipient of a trafficked girl, that vote stands out as a more glaring problem than it was at the time. The third thing I will say about this is that Matt is not doing a particularly fabulous job of containing the firestorm. Apparently he was on an interview show tonight, at which point he vociferously denied that there were photographs of him with underage girls, which is interesting because he hadn't been accused of having pictures of him with underage girls. So to vociferously deny it before it's even been accused is kind of an awkward move. It's not getting ahead of it. It's basically throwing chum in the waters. It's like there are sharks circling around Matt Gaetz and he's throwing bait in the water because now they know that they need to be looking for photographs. I know you can tell from my demeanor that I am amused. I am not amused that a girl was exploited. I am not amused that a 17-year-old girl was in a situation where she was having sex with an almost 40-year-old man. I am not amused that her life will be turned upside down, or that her family's life will be turned upside down. I'm not amused by that. But the hypocrisy of the GOP truly knows no bounds. And I want to remind you of what happened to Katie Hill and how she was basically forced to resign because she was having a consensual relationship with an adult, right? And that the optics of it were poor because this was an adult who had been a staffer of hers. And she was basically blackmailed by the GOP of her state and forced to resign. I begged her on Twitter. I begged her not to step down. I begged her to stand her ground and said, look, Democrats have your back. We're going to stand with you. You do not need to resign. You haven't done anything wrong. We got you. But she chose to resign anyway. And I don't know all the ins and outs of that. It could have been because she was concerned for her children or family or something else. I don't know. I wish she had not stepped down. I very much wish she had not. But as far as I can tell, Gaetz is not planning to resign. We were told in earlier news that broke earlier this morning that he was considering a talking head gig with Newsmax, and I responded that had to be a rumor, and like a baseless rumor, because why would he give up a congressional seat he won relatively easily? Why would he do that? And now the other shoe drops. Oh yeah, there's scandal. 101A. The most fundamental kind of scandal you can have. Sex with a teenage girl. That's the kind of thing people frown upon. Of course, unless, of course, you're Brian Mast, the guy that I ran against. Brian was cheering on his 40-year-old buddy, telling him that he should have sex with as many 15-year-old girls as he could. And Republicans and voters in my district considered that was not a disqualifying thing because, surely he was just joking. And my response to that was, it's not like people like him don't do this. They do actually act out these ideas. It's the ideation is a sign that he thinks this is perfectly okay. And he swims in a circle of men who think that this is perfectly okay because not one of them rang the alarm. And this was on public. This was publicly posted on Facebook. And nobody said, hey, that's disgusting. What are you talking about? That's weird. Why would you do that? And so he only had remorse when he had the spotlight on him for saying it. Until that point, he thought it was great. So am I surprised that so far Brian Mast has had nothing to say about the situation? No. I highly doubt that he will ever have anything to say about the situation. But we need to be very, very cognizant of the fact that this is a serious issue for Matt Gaetz. This is a serious issue for him. Is it enough to get the Republicans to turn on him? No. Because why would they? The Republicans value nothing but loyalty. He could be Attila the Hun himself. As long as he's loyal, he's good. So we're going to see the drum beat of his resignation rise on the left. And we're going to see a bunch of Republicans that are going to no comment, are going to say they don't know the facts. They're going to reserve judgment. He's innocent until proven guilty. They're just basically going to say they're not interested. They're not going to say anything. They're not going to push him out. This is my prediction. They are not going to push him out. If he goes out, he's going to resign of his own will, and it's because he's going to get money from someone to do that. But they're not going to push him out. That's what's fascinating about all of this. And what it means to you is that there's a whole lot of interesting shenanigans going on in our Senate right now. Personally, I thought his biggest liability was the fact that he was a traitor and a seditionist, and that he was likely, although we do not know this, but he was likely one of the members who gave tours to seditionists the day before January 6th. I'm not claiming I have data to that fact. I'm simply saying he's the kind of guy that would have, and that was his group. So could be that he is caught up on that as well. It could be that he's got cascading liability in his future. But for now, he is in a firestorm. Let me tell you, it could not happen to a more deserving guy. Matt, I just got to shake my head at it. And maybe this will be the thing that gets the Florida bar to move forward on my petition to have him disbarred. It's been pending now for months. I asked them to hold off on a decision until such time as all of the facts with respect to January 6th have been made public. So I assume they're holding for that. But man, Matt Gaetz is putting such a black eye on the Florida bar. You'd think that this would do it. But sadly, it's Florida, and you'd be wrong. Alrighty. So our next topic for today.
If you like what you just heard, you can find out so much more and hear so much more on my Patreon channel, patreon.com/Pam Keith FL. That's where you hear the rest of this discussion, and there's lots more to share.